So welcome everyone. My name is Stefan, in case you have not met me. So today we're going to talk about transformation. We're going to talk about presence. So 3 years ago, I chose to listen to my soul calling that had been calling me for a long time, to embrace my purpose, to be a catalyst for transformation, innovation of consciousness. And I learned through the path what it actually meant and the devotion that I've been demonstrating. And through my work, I'm blessed to meet very, very inspiring people. So Alan Seale is one of those people. And I remember in 2017 that when I called him the first time, I was actually at the tennis court and we had a conversation, and I was calling someone that I really admired because I read some of his books, and he was so gentle and kind to me. And he accepted my invitation. So a few years later, we are here now to talk about Alan's wisdom, which I believe is more needed than ever in our world that's suffering, that's actually breaking open. So we're going to explore that with Alan. It's not breaking down, it's breaking open. And Alan, welcome.
Thank you very much, Stefan. It's great to be here with you and with all of you.
You know, Alan, we are living in interesting times. You know, I watched a movie one time. They said in China, there's a symbol for crisis. It also means opportunity. So we are at one of those times, I think. And it's quite captivating. It's quite scary, but it's quite, you know, we can have optimism as well. So I would love for you to share, you have several decades of transformation, you know, and maybe share a sliver of your life, you know, because you are now a very powerful teacher around the world. But this is not the way you started your professional life. So maybe talk about some of the shifts and maybe some of the transformation that you embraced. You know, you talked about every decade, but you've really transformed yourself many, many times.
Well, thank you. It's kind of interesting to the way you asked that question. Transformed myself many times. I feel like it's just been one big transformation. It's not been many different times. And so there are many different shifts that have happened in my life. And sort of the first half of my professional life, I was a professional singer and a voice teacher for opera singers in New York City, and was quite successful at that. My students were singing on the biggest stages of the world in opera and music theater. And then at a certain point, it was like, you know, I'm really good at this, but I'm not learning anymore. There's something else that has to be for me. And I also couldn't quite imagine that I was going to sit on the piano bench for the rest of my life, working with one person at a time. I felt like there's something else I'm supposed to do now. I was already working with performers of all kinds, not just singers, in terms of understanding how energy works within them in performance. And so I'd created a program called Self-Discovery as Artist and Performer. And there was another little personal piece in there that I was living in New York City. I'm originally from Kentucky. I'm a country boy at heart. I love the quiet and the nature. And so I didn't want to live in New York City forever. But as long as I was making my living teaching singers at the level that I was teaching, I had to live in New York. So I in the late 90s, I heard about coaching, and I was already doing this energy work with performers, and I'd been on my own spiritual journey for quite a long time. So when I heard about coaching, I thought that sounds interesting. And in 2000, 2001, I did my first coach training. By 2003, I'd completely shifted my income over to coaching. It just felt like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to do next, and sold my apartment in New York and left. And at that moment, I would never have imagined that I would be doing what I do now. I thought, you know, I'll help some people make some changes in their lives and find out who they are, and you know, we'll take a journey together. And I remember so clearly when I had written, I think, 3 books more about personal development, and then I wrote Create a World That Works, and I sent that to my publisher basically for her to turn it down, because I thought, this is not really your kind of book. It's much more a leadership book. And I had a very good relationship with them, and I wanted to honor that, but I thought, this is not their book, you know? And she said to me, I sent the book, and she called me up 2 days later, and she said, I love this book. I want to publish it. However, we just need to tweak it a little bit so it's a little more personal development. And I said, no. We have already created 3 really good personal development books. Well, there comes a point where you can develop and develop and develop, but what are you going to do in the world? What are you going to take out there? And that was kind of that was the shift that was happening inside of me during that time, was to realize we can develop ourselves, which is an important journey. And certainly as we develop ourselves, that makes a difference in the world around us. But I was feeling like there's a next step. There's something else here. And she said, okay. And they published the book as it was. They hardly touched it. And she also asked, before we ended the call, she said, you know, those 4 levels of engagement, some of you who've been around my work a little bit know the 4 levels of engagement: drama, situation, choice, and opportunity. And she said, can I put that on my wall? I said, sure. So that was kind of a significant turn as the work started opening more and more into leadership. And again, it was leading me. I didn't set out to do this work all over the world and to travel so much. And of course, in the last 5 months, I've been at home, but like we all have. But I think I've taught in 17 different countries now. And I never imagined that happening. That was just me sort of saying yes to what I was being asked for and taking the next step. So it's been an extraordinary journey and has challenged me on lots and lots of levels in my own evolutionary process.
So beautiful. I like this part when you say, I said yes, and not knowing what's going to be on the journey. And you just said yes with courage, and life probably gave you the opportunities to be shaped into who you needed to become to carry your mission.
Yeah, it was a very specific time when I was really kind of feeling lost about what is it that I'm supposed to do next. I'd written several of the books, and I was coaching a lot and teaching workshops, but I thought, there's something. And in my meditation, I just kept hearing the message, say yes to the service you're being asked for. So that's what I did. And that's what's led to now.
Amazing. Alan, can we introduce the subject, transformational presence? You know, while I was checking in with you, I told you as I was logging in, I just felt in my body the severe transformation I've been through in the last 5 months because I embrace presence. So we can talk about that a bit. So what is transformational presence? What is it?
So thank you for asking that. So let's break that down into the 2 words, actually. Yeah. So when we talk about presence, we're talking about how are you showing up right here, right now. There's a lot of talk now in certain circles about being fully present in the moment, and mindfulness, you know, is now the big hot thing in the corporate world. Not always in such a pure way, but that's another story. And so I feel like we talk a lot about being fully present, but we don't talk about what is the presence that you're bringing to this present moment. And so it's bringing that awareness of presence. It's how you're showing up in the moment. It's what do people feel when they are with you? How do they experience your energy? What happens when you walk in the room? That's what we're talking about with presence. And then that word transformation is another word that is being used everywhere now. And the problem with when we start using words so ubiquitously is that we easily lose touch with what the power of those words are at their essence. The word transformation comes from the Latin root transforma, which literally means change across form. And it's a change that happens from the inside out. So that in our work in transformational presence, it's all about cutting through to the core, to the essence as quickly as possible, and then working from the inside out. It's like dropping the pebble in the water and the rings go out. So when we can get to the core, or at least as close as we can in that moment, and work from there, things much more quickly begin to transform within the whole system, rather than starting from the edge. Change is starting from the outside and taking little bites and hoping that you're going to get to the center, but we almost never do. Transformation, on the other hand, starts in the center and works its way out. In quantum physics terms, you would define it as a shift in vibrational frequency and pattern. And there's another thing that I kind of have been coming back to in the last few weeks. I actually read Create a World That Works again as I'm preparing for some courses, and found one paragraph that I'd kind of let slip away from me, which is all about that there is the moment, or there is the situation that creates the transformation on the surface. Something shifts within us. So let's call it the shift that happens in our awareness. Yet that is not yet transformation. It is not transformation until we claim it, until we own that, until we embody that, until we say yes to that, and now begin to move into living in that awareness. Then the transformation has happened. So it's there are those moments. We all have had moments in our lives when you realize something has just shifted. I suddenly see something completely differently. I understand something differently. I am showing up differently because of that. But until I embody that, then I have not truly transformed. So transformational presence, when we come to that, it's really about creating the optimal culture that allows transformation to unfold. It allows the greatest potential within any situation to unfold. It is about listening and sensing and feeling and following that potential and letting it lead the way. So I think of it, transformational presence, in a very practical terms, it's like tending a garden. If any of you are gardeners, you know that when you plant a seed, there's nothing you can do to make that seed grow. But there are many things you can do to encourage that seed to grow. So you plant the seed in rich soil, and you make sure that it gets the right amount of water and the right amount of light and for that particular seed. And you fertilize and you pull the weeds to give it room to breathe. You tend the garden. Transformational presence at the most kind of foundational level is about tending the garden. It's about taking care of the space. The Japanese have a term called ma, which refers to the energetic space of a situation. So it's not necessarily a physical space. It's the energetic space that inhabits that physical space. And what is the energy there? So they will say, what is the ma of that situation? What is the ma of that project? What's the ma in that relationship? It's the space in between. It's in the relationship space. That's where we do our work in transformational presence. It's creating the optimal space that allows the relationship energy to open and thrive and flourish.
Wow. I just felt deeply in my body your words of wisdom, Alan, because I would love to talk about embodiment. At one point, you usually coach me when we do these webinars, and it's going to happen again today. But I was talking one time about meditation and mindfulness, and you said, how can you live your life without connecting with your source every day? And we get all busy, and should I go on my cushion or not? But what has happened for me in the last 5 months because of COVID is embracing my incarnation in my body. Dedicating an hour a day to practices where because I'm present, there's so much joy in my life. In the park, I commune with the squirrels and the dogs and things I've never seen before, but also so much is arising for me to heal. Last week I felt in my body the first time I was probably ever rejected when I was a small child, and I felt the pain and then the liberation after. So as a guy who spent 30 years in his head as a senior executive, can we talk about transformational presence maybe in the context of personal transformation, but then leadership? Because you cover both in your approach.
Yeah, so the ancient wisdom teachings talked about 3 intelligences within us. So the head and the belly and the heart. And now neuroscience shows us the science behind that. The key for this is to understand that it's not one better than the other. They each have different functions that are all incredibly important. And so our working with all 3 of them is essential. We live in a world, in a culture that basically only supports the intellect, the head intelligence. And maybe we tap into the heart here and there a little bit to sort of soften the edges, but we don't live there. And down in the belly of that deep awareness of what's happening right here, right now. What is real and what's happening right here, right now, and what is not real and what's happening right here, right now. And so each of these have a different thing. Some of you may know the research of the Institute of Heart Math out in California, and they're doing amazing research on the intelligence of the heart, on the coherence or the alignment of the heart and the mind. Yeah, I can't see your name right now. Yeah, Norman, yes. Norman knows what I'm talking about here. And they've done a lot of intelligence on intuitive thinking, a lot of research on intuitive thinking and what is that. And as a part of their research, they discovered that the electromagnetic field of the heart energy center is 5,000 times bigger than the electromagnetic field of the intellect of the brain. And so what that says to be is that therefore this heart intelligence center, which is the center of the intuitive mind, has access to a field of information that is 5,000 times bigger than the field of information that we can access only through the intellect. Now, that does not make the heart better and the intellect not as good. They have different functions. The heart is really good at reaching out, stretching way out into the energy field of the situation and gathering information. But it's not very good at organizing that information. That's what the intellect is very good at. The intellect will organize that information, it catalogs it. It's, you know, when you haven't thought about something for 5 years and suddenly you need that piece of information and it's right there, that's the brain, that's the intellect, the way that functions, that amazing organizing and cataloging system. So this huge shift that transformational presence is about, in one way, it's about shifts in lots of different ways, but kind of a big paradigm shift is that we're so conditioned to always lead from the intellect and maybe engage the heart a little and maybe not. And that puts us in access to a very limited field of information. So therefore there is tremendous stress on our system to keep trying to figure things out, to analyze what's going on, to make a plan, with actually not so much information. When we can flip that around and start from the heart not as in this emotional lovey-dovey heart, but this heart that is this incredibly powerful intelligence that can expand into an energy field. And to realize that the heart can reach out and begin to sense and feel what's going on in a situation. What is the information that we need to bring in? And bring that in, and immediately the intellect steps in to support, to organize, to begin to shape that and say, so this is how we can work with that in this three-dimensional realm. So they're partners in such an incredible way. The belly is the grounding force, and the belly is the right here, right now. So just even in the last couple of years, I'm learning so much more about the importance of the belly intelligence, in that when the belly intelligence is open and clear and you anchor in love in the belly, now the heart can do its work. But when the belly is not open and clear and grounded, then the heart is still also struggling to be open because our fears get in the way there. When we can come to do our work in the belly first, then the heart also has a much better chance to do its job in the most powerful way, and then the intellect can be there to support as well. So coming back to the embodiment, what does that mean? It means, in all of our work in transformational presence is about incredibly simple tools and frameworks. I call them frameworks the most, actually, because they're not models exactly. They're not formulas. They're frameworks in which that create a structure that we're kind of dancing within. And so all of these frameworks that we work with, they are so simple and yet so powerful. They take you straight into the body and straight into the intuitive awareness without us having to talk about intuitive awareness. It's sort of like we come in through the back door. And the way you ask a question, the way you engage, automatically begins to trigger that. It's, in a way, if I could say it, what is it that makes that question work? It's asking a question that that the intellect doesn't quite know what to do with that question. And it makes us go to some other part of us to find the answer. Now, if that question is too far off, that the intellect is just like freaked out by it, that's not going to serve. So it's this art of working and engaging and helping this energy system. I mean, this is actually the new frontier for us, to me. It's the next big frontier that is waiting for our discovery and development. So this technology is here. But what it's about is our learning how to use that technology. And so all of our tools and frameworks are about you finding out how this system works for you and immediately tapping into it and gathering information really quickly and getting an insight and awareness and being able to then make a shift.
Mm.
When we talk about transformational presence practices, I mean, when I created that course, I taught it for the first time back in the winter when suddenly I couldn't travel. And I thought, well, okay, then what is kind of an introductory course and an overview course that I can offer people who are not necessarily coaches or leaders, but just people who need some tools right now for navigating these times. That's something else for us to talk about, Stefan, about navigation in these times as opposed to fixing in these times. It's a really important aspect of right here. But I thought, let's just create this as a set of tools, a set of frameworks to help people navigate the uncertainties of these times. Because when we're living in an uncertainty, that really, as enlightened as we may be, that eats away at the system. Because I don't know of any time, maybe in human history, but certainly not in my life, where it literally has felt like there's no place to go where the ground is steady, where the ground is solid now. There is no place. And none of us have experienced that before. There is somewhere that we can go that things are okay, things are steady, things you can depend on. And certainly in my country, with what's happening right now, is incredibly unsettling. And it's also a journey we have to take, but that's another story. But to realize that all the things you always thought you could count on, and then you realize, oh my gosh, that we can't count on that at all right now. So navigating as opposed to fixing, we'll get there in a moment. I got sidetracked from embodiment, sorry.
No, but Alan, it's so profound because knowing you as a teacher, you say what needs to be said. So, maybe you didn't know you're going to say what you just said this morning, but it just landed with me so profoundly and triggers me to ask the next question, because I want to talk about the great breaking open, because I think language defines our reality, and humanity is I'm quite captivated. We're at the place where there's huge potential for transformation like never before, but there's also so much darkness that can really scare us off. And you coined the term, the great breaking open, which I really love, because we're just breaking everything open. So now it can be seen and fixed and healed and transformed. Can you share a bit about that and your view?
Yeah, actually, I don't know so much that we're breaking it open. It is breaking open.
Yeah.
And there are ways in which we're helping that along, perhaps, but by some choices and decisions that we make. I actually started, I coined that term back in 2016 during the presidential campaign, and here in the U.S., and not knowing that Trump was going to win, but realizing that it's all breaking apart right now, breaking open. And I also recognize that many people would say it's breaking apart, it's breaking down, things are falling apart. And for me, it's like, no, it's breaking open so that we can see everything that's there. And in my meditation, I kept hearing the phrase, everything will be revealed. And boy, look at over the last 4 years, how much has been revealed and how much continues. And will continue through the next decade at least, more and more continuing to be revealed as things keep breaking open. And so that is actually a great place for us to talk about this navigating versus fixing thing. We are all so conditioned. We have been really well taught that things are problems and you make a plan and you fix it. And then you move on. And that works when you're in a very linear, complicated world. Complicated are things, when things are complicated, we could use that term because it's linear. And you can make a step-by-step plan. You can even look back and see step by step how we got to where we are. There's no way to look at where we are in the world right now and say step by step, this is how we got here. It was all these things swirling around like this that have converged to bring us to this moment. There's nothing linear about it. It's incredibly fluid and circular. And so here we are in a time when complicated solutions are not very effective. Of course, there are a few things that you can look at in a complicated way. The illustration I use is the bicycle. You look at a bicycle and you can kind of figure out if it's not working. You can see what's wrong. Anything beyond that, not so much, because, and especially as soon as you put people into the equation, it has just become complex because you're dealing with thoughts and opinions and wants and desires and attachments and all these things that are there. We are living in an incredibly complex world, and the key to navigating complexity is this intuitive mind, is this awareness of on a much, much bigger level, and having the skills and the capacities. I talk a lot about, in the coaching world, the International Coach Federation talks about the core competencies of coaching. Those are important for building your skills. However, that's not the destination. That's not the end. They're just building blocks, because ultimately we've got to get to core capacities, our capacities to hold a situation, our capacities for awareness, our capacities for perception and understanding, our capacities for being with the unknown, our capacity for living in complexity. So when we're dealing in complexity, it's much more about listen, sense, feel, begin to sense what are the players, what are the parts, what are the layers, and let it talk to you, because it's going to lead you. You are not the leader. And this is a whole another level of leadership that's unfolding as well as we come through this great breaking open, because I was taught there are 3 levels of leadership. You follow a leader, you choose a leader to follow, which is an active leadership, because we are all constantly shaping the mass consciousness. And so when we make a choice, that's putting an energy out there into the mass consciousness that's saying, yeah, there's something good about that. And somebody else looks at that and says, well, he thought it was a good idea, maybe I'll go too. So that's that first level of leadership. And then the second is when we choose to be a leader of our own lives and take responsibility for our own lives. The third level is when you begin to lead others. And in the purest form, of course, it's when you just start to realize there are people following me. I didn't set out to do this, but something's happening here and I need to pay attention. So you become a leader of others. But this, right on the periphery of the consciousness now, is coming in this fourth layer of leadership, which is recognizing that the potential, the what wants to happen, is how we talk about it in Transformational Presence. The potential is the leader. And the job of the person who has that title of leader, their job is to listen, sense, and feel to that potential. And sense, get the instructions, if you will, take the directions of what is the next step, and translate that to the people that they are leading, and to help their people learn how to listen, sense, and feel into that potential as well. So that now the leader is not the only one with that responsibility. We are all together listening, sensing, and feeling, and we're finding our way as the potential leads the way. There's a big process that I do sometimes with leaders called the intelligence within. And it's working with this intelligence as wisdom within us, but then recognizing that there is an intelligence within the situation. There is a wisdom within that. There is something that wants to happen there. And so we do this work in doing that dance between the wisdom that we have, the wisdom that's there, and then finding that place where they come together. Recognizing that there is that energy of potential, and that's the leader. It's finding, when you have a project that you're working on, the project is not about, I mean, if the project is just about getting the result of what you say you want to do, that's fine, but that's kind of boring and limiting. That project exists. What if it exists as a vehicle for some bigger potential that's waiting to unfold? So actually so much more can come to life through that project. If you'll listen to that potential and let it guide you, it will lead you. We talk about, do you talk to life or do you let life talk to you? Ultimately, it must be a full circle, but it starts with letting it talk to you first. That's very different than how most of us grew up.
Alan, it's not just in your country, it's around the world. We are facing, humanity is facing potentially its darkest times and its biggest opportunity for light. And I think you and I discussed that. What do I do when I get up? How do I chase the darkness and celebrate all that's wrong? Because I affect the mass consciousness, or am I aware of that? Because you live in your country, it's evident, it's on the news. And what do I choose to be? Who do I choose to be to affect with my work, but also my consciousness? So maybe you can share what you're doing as a person, that knows everything that's going on, but that knows about the potential of transformation. How do you choose to be every day? What do you personally choose to do every day, or to be, to affect positively?
Another piece of navigating that is so hugely important, first, is to give space for the full spectrum of human emotion, to give space within us for the full spectrum of the human experience, to give space for the fact that I can be really scared about something and I can be hopeful about something at the same time, to give space that I can be grieving something that I feel like we are losing and I can be celebrating something that's happening at the same time. We are so conditioned, again, to live, kind of put our emotions into boxes and only have one at a time. The fact is that they're all there. The full pendulum swing is present, even though the pendulum may be in one place at a time, but the whole spectrum is there. So what am I doing right now? I'm writing a lot about exactly that, about us stretching. This time is stretching us in how we can show up in the world. It's stretching us in our capacities for understanding ourselves and understanding how life works. So it's that stretching of capacity. And for myself personally, some of you may know the poet David Whyte, and he's a really wonderful teacher for me currently. And David Whyte talks about the anxiosphere. And I love that term. He talks about it. It's what happens in the night. And the night is not always an easy time for me because I have a lot of tools. I have a lot of ways to work and to navigate in my conscious waking hours. And then you go to sleep and suddenly you're in the subconscious and you are open to everything that's going on in the consciousness. I travel a lot in the night as well. And so I'm often not in my body, and that's a challenging thing at times. And I love that term, the anxiosphere, because when we come back to what are we doing, it feels so important that it's not about denying that something is happening. It's about fully acknowledging this is going on. This is real. Now, where do I choose to put my focus with that? But it's not, I'm just going to go focus over here and pretend that's not happening. No, it's to be fully aware. This is happening. And where do I choose to put my focus to now move us, my contribution to the greater consciousness, to move us in a different direction? What does that mean? So it's every day making those very conscious choices for ourselves. And I don't know how it is for you, but certainly for me, it's been quite a roller coaster ride over these months. And I have learned so much more about what it means to live fully present in the moment. I've been quite good at that for a long time, for periods of time, an hour, 2 hours, a day teaching a class. But now it's No, it's for this week. It's this month. Be just right here. I feel like that I have so much more capacity for just being in this moment, and I'm not worrying about what's happening next week. This is where we are right now, and this is what we're addressing, and this is what we're working with. This is what's here right now. And I'm aware that there is something that will happen next week, but if I'm clear about my choices today, that will help make next week okay. I'll find my way through that. I hear people say, it's just okay, or let it be okay. And I think this is also where it's so critical for us to be able to say, it's not okay. I can be with it. I can be here with what's happening. It's not okay with me what's happening. This is about accepting what's here right now is what's here. I don't have to like it. It may hurt my soul. It may feel good and challenge everything that's important to me, but it's what's here right now. If I don't accept that that's what's here, I can't work with it, then I'm pushing against it. But if I'm willing to say, okay, that is what's here, whatever is in front of us in the moment has just become our next co-creative partner. That's a big piece we'll work on the very first day in the TPP course, Transformational Presence Practices. What's here right now, that's just become my next co-creative partner. It may not be the only co-creative partner that I have, but it's the one that's right in front of me. And so that's what I've got to work with. And so that shift right there, that awareness, if we just take a quick, I know we're going to run out of time, Stefan, but if we could just take a moment here for that very simple exercise, bring to your awareness something right now that is a challenge for you. You're not going to have to talk about it, so it can be anything. And then no matter what your relationship to it is, for right now, push against it, fix it, make something happen. Just take care of it now. And notice what happens with your breath, what happens in your well-being, your sense of well-being, what happens in your relationship with whatever the concern is. And stay with it just a little bit longer in that push against place to really feel what that is in your body, in your whole system. And then take a breath and shake that out. Now, chances are, for all your pushing against it, it's still there. It hasn't changed. So maybe it's easier for you to drop down underneath it, or maybe it's easier to lift way up above it. Whatever is easier for you and your awareness, dropping down to a quieter place, lifting up above it, and let it talk to you. What if there's actually a message that's trying to come through? There's something that's trying to get your attention. There's something here that's asking for you to put your focus there. Let yourself go there. And what if you partner with that message? Partner with it. Notice what happens with your breath. Notice what happens in your relationship with the challenge. When you partner with it. This gives you just a tiny taste. There's so much of what we do in the transformational presence work that fundamentally it's about learning all different kinds of ways to partner with instead of push against, to work with what's right here, to recognize that we are in a co-creative process for our lives and for the work we're doing in the world in every moment. The co-creation is happening. It's up to us how we choose to be a part of that.
Thank you, Alan. As we have 13 minutes left, I would love to invite the people with us to ask questions or share an observation or reflection so we can benefit from Alan's wisdom. So if you're ready to ask a question or make a comment, just unmute yourself and please go ahead.
Yeah, no man.
Thank you, Alan. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a business coach, And I have a very tough question for you. What are the three biggest blockages or difficulties that you face when you coach leaders in the organization?
Their fear, and their fear, and their fear. Yeah, I think, I don't mean to be making light of that. I think that when you can recognize that however they are responding in the moment is probably coming from the fact that they're just scared. Am I going to be, especially right now, they're just scared. Am I going to be able to do my job? Am I going to be able to take care of my company? Am I going to be able to take care of my people? Am I going to make the numbers? Are we going to survive? There's just so much there. And so the first place is just to say, feel your body in the chair and give them a practice so simple to just be still. And to let them know that whatever they feel, it's okay that they feel that. Let that be there, because ultimately that's what will take them to their answers. When we learn to now listen and to let it talk to us. There's not a simple answer to your question, but I guess the biggest answer I can give is knowing the person that you're working with, and you know their language, and you know where they are, and you know what is going on with them and what they can respond to in the moment. And you start there. You start where they are, and you keep holding them in that bigger place. And most importantly, when they can feel, it's not about you telling them, when they can feel that you are right there with them and you're going to walk beside them, they're already breathing easier. I don't run away from talking about anything with the business leaders. We just go there, and they are so grateful. They so desperately want to go there, but they don't give themselves the time or the space, or they don't feel safe to go there. So here we are.
Oof, thank you very much. Because I can relate to many webinars that we had, and that is many aspects that I didn't know how to put them together, but your answer linked these dots, and thank you very much, Stefan.
I think the most important thing maybe to follow up just with that is, please do not go in and help them fix their problems.
No.
That's what I hear webinars, I read articles, I see all these people, everybody since COVID has come is busy offering their solution.
No.
And it is just like, this is so much noise, and we can't take any more noise. We need some quiet, actually. We need some quiet. Yeah. Something else?
I just would like to thank Norma for your question, because it was actually a good one I needed. And also I have another thing that I would like to share with you. It is that a lot of people nowadays they are so lost. They kind of like looking for somebody who would help them to find a way. And of course they are looking for the leaders. And it was actually great to learn, and I learned it lately, that we can actually become the leaders for ourselves. And just like you said, that we should choose to be a leader for or of our life. And thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome. And this is very much also part of our times, that it's up to every single one of us. That, and I'm not particularly I'm not one who's speaking for flat organizations and that kind of structures. I think that's just another step towards finding what is really where we're headed. But this whole understanding of leadership and what that means, and us, this is a huge part of where we are in the world, especially in more in the United States maybe than in a lot of other European countries, but people taking responsibility for themselves. We're very immature about that in the United States, and that's a big learning for us right now. Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, who would like to ask a next question?
Martin here.
Hello.
Hello, Martin.
Yes. I have a question. I'm not a leader in a big organization, I'm not a coach, but I feel that I'm president of myself and president of my family. So
Great.
I have a leadership role with my kids, 8 and 10 years old. Any thoughts about how to be a good leader in this environment and how to maybe coach the kids during this crisis time?
Yeah, there's we mentioned it at the beginning of the call. I don't know if you were there or not. This tool called the 4 levels of engagement. And the sort of the nickname is the disco model. I know it dates me, but you know, but because it's drama, situation, choice, and opportunity. And that is a fabulous framework for children. They totally get it. And so in the Netherlands, I work a lot in the Netherlands, and there's this whole field called kinder coaching, coaching children in the Netherlands, that I've not really seen so much in other countries. And we've had a lot of kinder coaches who've come into the Transformational Presence work, and they take a lot of our frameworks and adapt them to work with the children, and they keep talking about how much the children just love this, and they get it instantly. So just go read about the 4 levels of engagement. You can find a video on my website about it. So just go watch that and then translate that into how you're going to tell that to your kids. You'll find the way very easily. And let them start to support themselves and support each other. And you're in the drama again. What happens if you go to choice? What happens if you go to opportunity? And make it a game. Let it be a game. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe one more, Stefan, and then I have to go to my next call, actually.
Yeah. So next question, maybe one last one. It's your chance.
Hi.
Hi, Branka.
Hi. I joined a bit late, but anyway, I'm calling from Croatia. And I'll be quick because we have not many minutes left. But, I'm thinking a lot over the past few years about human consciousness, and you can read a lot about it, especially if you are in the coaching world, and I am. And then, I also have a sort of a corporate job. And, when I'm in the role of a coach, it's not difficult for me to embody that more enlightened and permissive way of being and doing and interacting with people, and more sensitive. However, when I have my corporate role, that hasn't really come, actually kind of almost disappears. And I'm not the only one. I see it a lot, among my colleagues. No matter
what is your question, Branka?
Well, actually, that for the consciousness to change, because that is what the evolution is asking. So I'm actually going to make a point that I'd like you to comment on. For me, the transformation can only happen one person at a time. And as we very well know, people are at very different levels. For instance, like in your country, well, in ours as well. So actually the question is, how long do you think it will take for us to for humanity to reach another level of consciousness?
Let me just get my crystal ball over here, and we'll see. Actually, so it will take as long as it takes, and that's really up to us. But I want to come back to something that you said just a moment ago that I feel like is really at the heart of what you're asking. Because when you said, I have my coaching world, which feels this way, and then over here is my corporate world, and there's the issue. Not just for you, the issue for us in the world, that we treat these as if they're separate things. When we work with the soul and the ego, when we work with the intellect and the intuition, we are so conditioned to think, I'm going to go think about this in my intellect, or now I'm going to leave that and I'm going to go just tap into my intuition. No, they work together. It's about everything coming into partnership, and it's about recognizing that there is no, let's put it this way, everything is energy. And so we have created these categories. We call it sacred or secular, or we call it spiritual or material, or we've created these categories, and then we built this whole world around that. And part of our healing and moving forward is to recognize that all those categories we've created, they're not real. They're just our own making. And so it's to recognize that your coaching world and your corporate world are different on the outside, but what if they're not different on the inside? And so it's, of course, I understand you can't just walk into the corporate world and start talking a whole other language or being in a whole other way. However, you can go into your corporate world and with your eyes, your sensitivity, your awareness of the coach, and you can listen and sense and feel of what's going on there. And you look for the openings, you look for the cracks where the light is shining through. You look for that person that their eyes light up because you say something a little differently, and then you realize, so maybe I just ask another question, and that opens the door, and we have a conversation on another level. And you ask questions that, again, as we talked about with, if you ask a question that makes the intellect so uncomfortable, then it can't go anywhere. But you're playing with how you ask questions in such a way that just stretch just beyond how they are thinking right now, and take them into another place. There's a lot more to say about your question, and your observation, but my invitation to you is to take away the separation and start looking for how underneath, what if they both can be built on the same foundation?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Stefan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. And I just want to let everyone here, you'll get it by email. Alan will be hosting a 4-week series of transformational presence practices. So all his wisdom downloaded into 4 2-hour classes. The wisdom that he acquired so far, because it's keep growing. So I'll send you a link with that, and I think it will be quite transformational.
Let me just say, Stefan, that course is completely practical for just tools and frameworks that you can use right now. It's not a coaching course. It's not a leadership course. And it's all things that you can apply in your coaching and your leadership and life on every level. But it's a completely practical, let's just dive in and get to work on stuff that's going on for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alan.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.